One of the biggest challenges in China is its falling birth rate, and officials are scrambling to try and reverse this issue. And so that's what we're going to cover in this video. So guys, as you smash that like button, let me run that intro. What's up guys, and welcome back to the channel. Now, if you've been a viewer of this channel for at least the last little bit, you know that I've been covering more and more their demographic crisis, where they're just under the replacement rate right now. And officials have taken notice, and they're looking to turn this around in any way possible. And so this week you've seen more sort of like benefits being provided to young parents to try and help increase that falling birth rate. And so what am I talking about? Well, let's get right into the first article. So you can see here, this came out yesterday, and it said that China is now starting to scramble to save its plummeting birth rate. And so Chinese officials announced that in 2022, it was the first time the total population actually dropped, because there was only 9.5 million births, and there was 10.4 million people who died. And so the country's population actually went backwards. And now the country faces a population decline combined with a long-running rise in life expectancy. And so why is that an issue? Well, because if you have more people that are retired, but not enough people that are coming up to replace them, that you could have a demographic crisis in terms of how are you going to pay for all of these people that are retired. And so this is a problem that we're seeing globally right now. And so, you know, one of the ways that countries are reacting to this is they're increasing the official retirement age. And so, you know, one thing as a look through for millennials is this is one of the reasons why investing for your retirement is so important. You can't rely on the government to do it for you. The government may not necessarily be able to provide for you once we get to that retirement age. And it's a long time for us now. So we can really reverse course right now to make sure that we're set. And, you know, essentially we rely on ourselves as opposed to the government, which is always a good move. And so just a little bit on their childbearing, so you can see that this decline in births has been happening for many years now. And so this 9.6 million is the latest low number, and I think, you know, it probably even goes lower in 2023. We'll see how this plays out. And part of the reason why you're seeing the birth rate fall is just people are just not getting married in China, and that's really what it is. So you have a decline in marriage, and so, you know, if you have a decline in marriage, eventually you're going to have a decline in society. And so the question really comes down to, why is it that people aren't getting married in China? And so I'm going to try and cover it in a couple of different ways. So the first one is the Washington Post actually put out a great article yesterday where they were talking about China's collapsing birth and marriage rates, which reflect people's deep pessimism in the country. And so what are they trying to get at here? Well, they highlight a couple of things. So, you know, Beijing, you know, their central lawmakers have not figured out a way to command people essentially to feel optimism about the economy. Now, I actually put out another video today where I talked about how the economy is starting to surge, so, you know, post-lockdown, so I really hope that that helps. But there have been challenges. Now, the Wall Street Journal points out things, I don't know if these actually matter, but they call it the dystopian world of ubiquitous facial recognition technology, draconian censorship, and the new high-tech social credit system. I don't think any of this matters really when it comes to baby rearing. I think this is Western media FUD. I think the real issue is alienation from work, which is causing people to lay flat. And what I'm going to show next is the property crisis, or high property values, actually impact people culturally in China as it relates to marriage. But the first thing that I wanted to point out is, notice this little exchange that got really viral in China. So in a video, a hazmat police person tried to bully a young man out of his apartment and off to a quarantine camp, even though he has tested negative for the coronavirus. And of course he refused to leave, which obviously makes sense. Why would you go to quarantine with a bunch of people who are positive for COVID if you're negative for it? It doesn't make sense. And then the hazmat suit guy said, don't you understand? If you don't comply, bad things can happen to your family for 3 generations. So the fact that somebody even says that outright tells you that, you know, not all of the Western FUD is FUD. There is some like real weird stuff that the CCP does to its people. And so the fact that you would warn someone and say it will not just impact you, but you and your family for 3 generations, I think that's a little bit too much for me. And so the guy replies, sorry, we are the last generation, thank you. And I think that was a very telling comment, because essentially it speaks to this lying flat, but mostly this let it rot movement, so for the China society as a whole. And that moment prompted the spread in China in social media for the hashtag the last generation. And so, there seems to be quite a bit of pessimism, and it wouldn't go viral on their social media unless there was a lot of people who felt this way. I mean, they could have just thought that it was funny. They could have thought that it's interesting and it got popular because he's standing up to the hazmat, but it could be also that they agree with it. I'm not really sure. I don't live in China, and so you guys who watch this channel who do live in China, let me know how you guys feel about this hashtag last generation. But I think here's the real issue. I think in China, and this is from what you guys have been telling me on the commentary and what I've been hearing in the news, etc., is that owning a home has really become a cultural prerequisite before a man can marry a woman. And that's not in every situation, but it's a nice to have, a very strongly a nice to have. And so once again, you guys let me know if this is still a cultural thing. And cultures change very quickly when they have to adapt. But right now, it just seems like having a home is a prerequisite to marry. Millennials in North America are getting married without homes, but the cultural societal pressure seems to be higher in China. In fact, I would say millennials in North America are just not even getting married. They're just cohabitating and just having children because our marriage rates are really low. I think, our birth rate, the average baby being born is probably someone in their 30s, especially for women that are living in the major cities. And nobody can afford a home in the major cities anyways. And so they go on to interview one person, and this person says, my wife's parents lived in a town where everyone's daughter and their children would buy homes when they got married. And of course, that seems like a normal thing. Even here in North America, that was a normal thing for a long time. And it's just not like that anymore. And what I want to point out is that one of the reasons, or I think the most important reason why people aren't able to buy homes in China, is look at how expensive buying a home in every one of their cities is. And so this is the property prices index by city for the year of 2023. And what it is the price to income ratio for a home. And so you can see in Shanghai, China, the price of a home relative to the income, the average income of the person is 46.6 times. So, if your income is, and I'll just do the math here quickly, if your income is, $50,000, the equivalent is the average home cost $2.3 million. So you can see why people are just not buying homes. I would absolutely refuse to buy a home if I had to pay $2.3 million. This speaks to, how expensive it is in China as a whole. They have 7 of the top 20 least affordable major real estate markets, which is saying a lot. And so in comes the government, and I just don't think that they're going to resolve the issue by offering people small levels or small amounts of subsidy, but the Hangzhou province will provide childcare subsidies to families with 2 or 3 children born to the same couple, and the household registration of a newborn child is registered in Hangzhou, and so a subsidy of 20,000 yuan will be issued. So yeah, I guess this might help people, but you know what happens with these subsidies? They generally just help people who are already going to have kids anyways. And so, we've seen these subsidies, at least in Canada, for a long time. And I don't think people make a decision to have a child as a result of the subsidies because they're just too low. And this one's a little bit weird. It sounds like if you have a government sanctioned doctor diddle your wife, you can get an additional leave on vacation. I don't know what this means, but take a look at this. I'm just joking around, but take a look at this. It's weird. So in Nanjing City, you can enjoy 15 days of marriage leave, which will come into effect on February 10, 2023. In Henglong, Henan, and these other places, they've also increased the provision to increase marriage leave for couples who participate in premarital medical examinations. So in other words, you have to go to the doctor and then report that to your government if you guys can likely have kids. That is weird, man. That's overreach by the government, 100%. And so, I would just give up I wouldn't take those 28 days. I think that's so weird. But of course, they're offering this. And once again, I just think that this is not going to go in the direction that they think it's going to go. I think these are bureaucrats who are trying to come up with ways to increase the population, but they're so far removed from the regular person that they are either refuse to understand or don't want to understand the fact that people just can't afford to buy homes. So how can they start families? They just have let the property market run. And so, you're going to have to increase supply, bring down the price for homes, or spur employment. And I just don't think you're going to spur employment as fast as you can sort of like try and bring those property prices down, especially in these major cities. Why do these major cities have price to income ratios of 50 times? It just doesn't make sense to me. The minute you go past like 20 times, you have a problem. And so, I don't know how they resolve this. Does the property market need a collapse in order for the economy to continue to, or population growth to continue to surge? Like, you wouldn't even get people from outside of the country to come in and enter this property market and start a family here. I just don't think they have many options. They're going to have to deflate this property market in any way that they can in order to assist the coming generation. But I don't know if they can do that. And so for those of you guys who are bulls of investing in China, I know I still am. This is a risk that we really have to take into consideration. I know you guys hate it when I talk negatively about the economy, but this is not going to be an echo chamber channel, because at the end of the day, real money is on the line here. And I think the article really echoes my opinion. And so they're saying that many young Chinese adults don't want large families and are pushing back on all sorts of incentives to reproduce. And I think that's the same thing in North America as well. And so, they're worried about the rising cost of education, housing, and healthcare. And so the fundamental problem is not that people cannot have children, it's just that they can't afford it. And I think that makes a lot of sense. And so, the often harshly enforced one-child policy, which was aimed at slowing population growth, I think it worked really well because it participated in the steep decline in births and led to a generational shifts in attitude around family sizes, which is absolutely true. There was a time where I think there was a popular celebrity in China. I don't exactly remember who it was. I think there was a 2-child policy at the time when there was this popular actor or actress or whatever. They had 3 kids and they were forced to publicly apologize. How do you turn that around and now ask people to have large families? I don't think you do. And the article goes on to say that the 2-child policy failed and the 3-child policy failed. And so, the child policy in general is the next natural step to fail. And so, investors in China, once again, this is not an echo chamber channel. Beware, this is a real risk. The population crisis is real and the property crisis is real as it relates to investing in China. So just understand these issues as you go into this country to invest. Now, with that said, I still remain positive overall on the country. I still like certain companies, that are beaten down way too much. I really like Alibaba. Now, the other thing about it is, consumption in China has started to surge recently, and I recently did put out a video on that, which if you missed it, you can get to it right here.